All right, happy Friday, everyone. I'm Angela Hutti here from Fox 2, and I am joined today by the newest member of our Fox 2 and News 11 weather team. This is meteorologist Jaime Travers. Welcome.
Hey, thank you.
It's great to be home. Exactly. I was going to say welcome back to St. Louis because you are a St. Louis native. Where did you go to high school?
Born and raised Parkway Central High School. I grew up in Chesterfield.
So there you go. So she's from St. Louis, but you went to college down south first.
Yes, I went to Georgia Tech University, what's it called? Georgia Institute of Technology.
There you go.
Georgia Tech University. Whatever. I know the college I went to. Yeah, so back down in Atlanta, lived downtown, lived there for 5 years. I took a year off, and then I came back home, went to St. Louis University, and went to grad school.
Very cool. And so then she's working Cape and out in Wichita.
Yes.
So we're excited to bring, we get plenty of severe weather here enough, but we're excited to have her bring her plains expertise of these developing severe weather systems from out across the plains here to St. Louis. So
yeah, Tornado Alley, it was an exciting 3 years. I didn't have any major devastating tornadoes when I was there, so that was
it's amazing how that'll come and go, really. We're almost like the locations change. Hey, before I forget, if you got a question for Jaime, because we're going to be chatting here for a few minutes, go ahead and post your question down in the comments, and the wonderful Casey, who is manning the camera for us here right now, is going to ask us those questions if you have them. And if you post a comment, question, or anything like that down in the comment section, you have a chance to enter to win to win a free pillow from our partners at Mattress Direct. So thank you so much, Mattress Direct. We like pillows. We like sleeping. Because sometimes when we have severe weather, we don't get to do that a lot. Okay, so back to Jaime now. Back to live action. But anyway, so you've been back here for about a week. Getting to deal with all of our different personalities. Are you enjoying it here at Fox 2 so far?
I'm loving it. Everyone's been super, super nice. Angela's been training me, and she's been a great help. I've had a little help from Chris and John Fuller as well, but mainly it's been you. I've been in your hands.
Yeah, so I hope so. It's all my fault if
I mess up. Blame her.
Send your comments to me. I know, but Jamie's been great to work at. You've been such a fast learner and picking everything back up, so it's just been really, really great. And got you. We just threw you in right on Friday. Just did your first show, the 11 a.m.
First show.
Feeling good to have it under the belt.
Bumps. Yeah, she was in the background, so I hit the wrong clicker at one point. It advanced the wrong graphic, but she got me. She fixed it.
Real life there. We all hit the wrong button from time to time. We always are. It's so funny because we are trying to watch these developing weather situations, and things are changing, and we're trying to change for you. And there's a lot of technology that goes into this that sometimes doesn't like to always cooperate with us.
Yeah, so different computers do different things.
But you're from here, we mentioned, and Parkway grad. Being back home, I know you visited a lot with your family still here, but anything you've done since you've been home that you're like, I can do this now?
Well, I've had a lot of thoughts like, oh my gosh, emos. I can order emos now. I haven't done it yet, but that's on my list probably this weekend. Maybe once I get through this weekend, I'll give myself a little treat.
Here's an important question for you. Is your husband a fan of emos as well? Your husband's from here too, right?
Yes, he also likes Fortels.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah. So my husband, he grew up in Wichita, a little bit of Chicago and Wichita. His family's in Chicago, but we're much closer to Chicago now than we were in Wichita. But currently I'm back home with my parents for the first time in
a while.
10 years.
She'll be hunting here.
So not quite house hunting yet. Just trying to get our bearings. But I got into town on Sunday, so with this, first few days of work, it's been so busy. I've basically just been coming here, going home, let my parents make me dinner.
Isn't that nice?
Enjoying a glass of wine.
Just full disclosure, when I moved home from Alaska, I went and lived with my parents for a little while as well, so I know exactly what you mean.
A little bit of a shock, but it's just temporary, so just keep reminding
myself. It's nice to have that. You're not scrambling to find an apartment or something when you come back home. So.
Yeah, or didn't have to go live in a hotel for a while.
Yeah, all that kind of nice stuff. So it's nice to get that. It helps ease the transition.
Yes.
That's for sure. So severe weather. Here's the question. Maybe folks who haven't been out to Wichita, what are some cool things that you loved about spending a little time in Wichita?
Wichita is a great little city. It's the biggest city in Kansas, actually, because Kansas City, Missouri is in Missouri, and Kansas City, Kansas is not as big as Wichita. So it's a really cute city. It kind of has a small town feel, but some of the luxuries of a bigger city. Great restaurants. I think per capita it has like the most restaurants and fast food chains really like in the country, or some weird statistic. There are tons of great restaurants, some local places. And you have the chains too. The one thing I missed in Wichita, the big chain, was Cheesecake Factory.
Oh, really?
Like, if I had a Cheesecake Factory, I could maybe live here a little bit longer. So just some things like that. But yeah, I had great shopping, and not as good as St. Louis.
Well,
but we didn't have the outlets and stuff. But great shopping and just a really cute little town. Everyone was super friendly.
Yeah, and got your start down in Cape, also fun.
Yeah, that was
Southeast Missouri has a lot going for it. Really, it's great.
Yeah, that was great. It was great being there because at the time, he was my boyfriend at the time. Now my husband, he was still in school here. He didn't go straight to college. He took a few years off and was a ski bum. So I met him when he was starting college. I was in grad school, but he still had a few years left. So it was great just being down in Cape. We kind of were both back and forth. I was up here on my weekends, which was Monday, Tuesday, and he was down on his weekends, and lots of driving back and forth, but
that's what you do with those long.
It was very It could have been worse. I mean,
absolutely.
I applied to North Dakota, Alaska. I mean,
I went to Alaska, yes, but my husband's from Alaska, and so when I got the job back here at Fox 2, we were separated for a bit, so that's a little harder to get back and forth. But we luckily made it work.
That's a lot harder.
Let's tell folks when they can see you here on Fox 2.
Okay, yeah. Well, I am on Saturday and Sunday mornings from 6 to 8:30 a.m. And then Wednesday through Fridays, I'll be a little bit of everything, but mainly Wednesdays and Thursdays, I'll be on both middays, 11 a.m. on Fox, and then noon on KPLR. I know next week I'm also filling in at 4 p.m. on KPLR. And then on Fridays, you'll typically do the Fox, and I'll do the KPLR midday.
Sort of split the duties. And the nice thing is then, if there's severe weather or something, there's somebody else here, we can kind of back each other up and work together. And which is, such a great thing about our team is we all work together so well. And we're just going to do our very best to bring you the best weather coverage that you can get. So, no questions yet? Nothing?
We've had a couple.
Okay.
A lot of people want to know, are there any significant weather differences between Wichita and St. Louis?
Well, Wichita itself and St. Louis, you get similar patterns. A lot of times what happens, the Wichita market covers all the way out to the Colorado border. So you start to get into the high plains and you get all the systems coming off of the Rockies. So you get a lot of spin-ups, a lot of tornadoes out in western Colorado. So usually things would bubble in western Colorado around 6, 7 p.m. and then they form into a big MCS, a big line of storms, and it would race across and it would hit Wichita around midnight. Occasionally, because that's where the dry line, everything fires out west along the dry line. So the actual storm systems that we get come through Wichita, luckily, are very similar to St. Louis, more of those big clusters or lines of storms. But sometimes if things are shifted east, the dry line is just west of Wichita, then we'll get the supercells that come through that form in south central Kansas and north central.
Yeah, those will tend to pop up right along that dry line. A lot of systems that we get will kind of spin together over those eastern Rockies and the plains, and so they sort of come to life. They are born out in the plains and the Wichita market, and then they take about 24 hours or so to move into the St. Louis area.
What we saw yesterday, it fired up. It was one of those ones that fired up actually just east of Wichita, east of the Flint Hills or the Turnpike there, I-35, and then that all kind of conglomerated and then it came across. So it's a little bit, it's very similar to the positions where we have things fire west, move through as a big line. Wichita has things fire up in the western part of the state and then move through, but sometimes that system shifts a little bit.
And it's amazing, even, you think of the plains as being flat, but she talks about the Flint Hills that may affect the weather a little bit, just the way that the eastern Ozarks here can affect some of our storm systems. And, as we often see the city of St. Louis, that urban heat island effect will also affect weather. And so you get those changes as things approach, they morph and change into the weather that we receive.
And Wichita is flat, yes, and it's very windy, but it's actually at an angle. So western Kansas is at a higher elevation, and then there's a graduate
you're coming downhill.
Change. So that also affects the weather. And I have had to forecast severe weather in south central Kansas on the same day. We've had severe storms out ahead of a big system, and then behind the cold front we had that wraparound moisture, and we had blizzards in northwest Kansas. So it's a very big viewing area. I have to do tornadoes and blizzards in the same day, so yeah, that's always fun.
Now, when you have a big market like that, when my first job was in Alaska, we forecasted for the whole state, and you're talking about even bigger. But I mean, when you're talking about that big of an area, in an area where weather can be so different on one side of the storm to the other, that it's here that would be like the comparison to us getting strong thunderstorms here in St. Louis while Kansas City is getting snow or things like that. So you're driving that home.
It's about that.
Yeah, so it can be quite large there.
We actually just had a really good question come in from Gwen. She says that predicting the Midwest is supposed to be one of the hardest areas in the country to predict. Is that true?
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, it's because we can have everything, and I tell this to people a lot that talk about us when we're shifting times or things on them. Everything is dependent. 5 miles here or there, especially with snow.
Oh, snow
5 miles here or there. 5 miles, or even 20 miles, but 5 miles here or there. 1 degree temperature changes.
So at one level in the atmosphere.
At one level in the atmosphere. Just they will throw your whole forecast, and because everything, the air masses come together over the central part of the country. You've got the warmer, typically moisture-rich flow from the Gulf of Mexico and the cooler, drier air of the plains and Canada all coming together right here. We just can see everything.
And it really is where, that line where it comes together, it's just a little bit of a difference north or south. Wichita seemed to be on that line. St. Louis is it going to be all rain? Is it ice, sleet, snow? And then accumulations. If you have sleet instead of snow for an hour longer, then your accumulation forecast is busted and everyone gets mad at you.
And believe it or not, we don't like
where's the snow?
Don't like when that happens.
Yeah.
We had a storm come through a few years ago and I'm forgetting the exact date right now, but it was a blizzard in Columbia, Jeff City, 20 plus inches of snow. Everything we thought was going to be shifted a little bit more eastward, and we ended up with 5 inches of sleet. Yes. It's got to be a powerful storm for us to get 5 inches of sleet. But it busted the snow forecast for here, but that heavier foot to 18 to 20 inches fell in Columbia and Jeff City. And but it was still an icy mess around here. Just these little pearls of ice all over the ground. It was pretty incredible, actually.
Yeah, we try our best, though.
We do. We do work very hard.
Are there any weather events that you guys have covered that kind of stick out to you?
My first severe weather event actually in Cape Girardeau. I was brand new to this whole business. I'd been there a few months. I think I got there in the summer in August, and this was in February, I think. Maybe I'm getting the dates wrong. The Harrisburg, Illinois tornado. That was my first introduction to broadcast meteorology and severe weather, and 6 people died, and it was just... I was not the main meteorologist on duty, luckily. There was 2 other people, more senior people, but I was sitting there, and it was happened right before sunrise, and when the sun came up and just saw all the damage, it was crazy. So that probably sticks out to me the most.
Especially because it was your very first.
Yeah.
The ice storms in 6 and 7, that was when I started back here.
I remember
my first day on the air was the first ice storm right after Thanksgiving in 06. And then that was 2 days in a row of freezing rain that just iced us in. Yeah. And then we had another one in January. And I remember covering it from Jerseyville, Illinois with our late photog Steve, and driving up there and just seeing the trees all bent over in half from the ice, and power outages and everything, which was also right around the time Sean Hornbeck and Ben Ownby were found. So it was this double whammy of stories of this huge news combined with weather. And it's one of those things where the storm came in. The day they found the boys was pouring down rain, and by the next day it was ice and snow. And so anyway, I remember that one very well. The 2011 tornado that hit the airport, the April 22nd tornado, I wasn't working that night, but I was watching and doing social media from home, and Dave was in and other folks were in here keeping you up to date. I'll always remember that night because I was on my couch, just, it was just memorable. And then a month later would be Joplin, and I was working with Chris that night. We were doing some tag team severe weather coverage here, and I remember looking at the radar and just seeing the storm in southwest Missouri and going, that just doesn't look good. And next thing you knew, we were seeing reports from the National Weather Service and the chasers that there was just a monster tornado in Joplin. And I remember Chris Higgins worked in Joplin. That was where his first job was. So he's very familiar with the area and the forecast, idiosyncrasies down there. And our focus really shifted because Joplin's close enough that there may be a lot of people here that have family that maybe come from that area, so we really, our weather here, we had to keep an eye on it, but it wasn't as severe as Joplin. And our whole focus really shifted. And then finally, I'm sorry, I've got a lot, but I'm just old, that's why. in 12, the hailstorm, it came through in early May in 2012, and we were here at the station. We were tracking a tornado east into Illinois, and the storms kind of refired out west across St. Charles County, and they came into Maryland Heights. And I was working with Chris that night again, and there's a lot of hard-working people here in the station, and all our cars got destroyed by baseball-sized hail. It was the first time I had in person had a hailstone that was baseball size. I mean, and it sounded like these booms that hit the sides of our studio here were it was the most incredible sound I'd ever heard. And a lot of us lost our cars, and I remember driving around in the McDonald's. They had all the glass windows up here at Westport. The windows were just shattered out, and it was just an incredible storm. So I'll remember that one. And I just remember looking at the roof camera. And that scene from Independence Day, it's kind of cliche, but that scene from Independence Day where the alien ship is like coming out of the clouds, like the wall cloud looked like you were waiting for the alien ship to come out. And I could see it from our the roof camera coming just right from Maryland Heights. And I was like, here it comes. I could see it on the radar, but when you see that cloud formation, it's frightening. And I know why folks can be very scared of severe weather because it can be quite frightening. But that was a big storm. Sorry, that was a long list. But.
No, that is fine. I was in grad school for the Joplin tornado in the airport. I remember I was out to dinner with my family and watching radar, and we were a little bit too close for comfort for that one. But I was still in grad school, so
it was just south of it where I lived, so I was just out of the main branch of the storm. But of course, it wasn't the only thunderstorm, so you're watching the line come in. So.
Yeah, in Joplin, watching radar and seeing that debris ball, it just makes your stomach.
It makes your stomach drop especially when you're in this business. So, any more questions before we wrap up?
Well, I have a really quick question for you. What inspired you to be a meteorologist and make you want to get into this business?
Well, actually, my dad, I used to be pretty afraid of tornadoes, and because my father, my dad's childhood home, they had just bought a home in the River Bend area, and they were moving from their farm out a little bit farther to the west, and they'd been fixing up this house, but it was their last final drive, and when they got to their house in 1967, it was destroyed. So the couch that they had already moved was across the street in the tree. Their house was completely just destroyed. And he always told me that story, and therefore whenever the sirens went off, he would make us I was already freaked out, but he'd make us get our tennis shoes. All very smart things. He'd make us make sure we had presentable clothes on in case our house got flattened. We'd be able to put our shoes on and be safe and walk through the debris. It scared me. It just totally terrified me. And then he always told me, once it goes still, once the rain stops and it goes still, which there is some truth to that, that's when you need to be worried. And not always, but once the rain shaft goes through, a lot of times, the rain stops, and then that's when you can get hit with the tornado, unless it's rain wrapped or something. But that fear really just made me very interested in weather and wanting to understand it more, figuring if I understand it and can figure it out myself, maybe I could keep myself a little protected from it.
Yeah, I hear that. I hear that a lot from many meteorologists, and when we go to Stormfest and things like that, people come up to me and they say, I'm scared of tornadoes, or my son wants to learn more about them because he's scared of them. Mm-hmm. So I think I was never afraid of them, but I was fascinated by them. My mom would find me in a big picture window in my house in North County growing up, and I would be sitting in the window watching the storms roll in, which is not someplace you should be in thunderstorms. Yeah. And my mom would come pluck me out of the window, and I just was always fascinated by it. Always kind of into science and weather and all that science too, which helps. Yeah. And I kind of became the unofficial meteorologist for things throughout my life because I was always kind of all focused. And I worked at a Girl Scout camp for years, and they would kind of bring me in to say, hey, do you think we should do something? So it just sort of became my thing, and I thought I'd give it a try. I used to never think I'd work in TV. I thought I'd work at a university or the National Weather Service, but I gave the TV thing a try, and it kind of worked out. So
I went back and forth. I wanted to do TV, and then I thought, maybe not,
and that's something I will say to anyone who's thinking, anyone whose kids are, or if you are thinking of being a meteorologist, it's not just TV. There are so many careers that have meteorologists. There are so many companies that have meteorologists on staff, so lots of options out there.
And it's a lot of math and science.
It is.
It's a lot of math.
Be ready
we love math and science. Yeah, a lot of people don't think that
physics,
we have to
calculus,
take all the calculus class, every
chemistry.
calculus class.
Yeah. So yeah, get
once you get
ready.
the degree, you don't have to use all those.
Not quite as much as we
unless
probably
you go
used
into
to.
research or something. But
Yeah, I don't know how my sigma notation would be anymore, but I can try. So,
yeah.
But anything else you'd like to add about yourself? What Ted Drew's?
I like Ted Drew's.
Fan of frozen custard?
I haven't had it in years. I love the chocolate frozen custard.
Okay, there you go. T-Rabs, you like?
I love yeah, Charlie Gito's. T-Rabs are my favorite.
There you go.
I learned to make them pretty well though on my own in Wichita.
Hey, there you go.
Not.
I remember when I moved to Alaska, my first Christmas up there, my mom sent me up 2 Emo's pizzas and a bag of toasted raviolis as my Christmas present. She was in dry ice, and it was very cool. That was one of the coolest Christmas presents Mom ever sent me, and I had made it for my roommate, and we had like a pizza party. It was really cool.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
I'm trying to think of any other.
Gooey butter cake.
Gooey butter cake.
Gooey butter cake. Yes, I introduced some of my friends to that when they visited. We all came here for Mardi Gras.
Oh, very cool. And you're going to a Cardinals game this weekend. You said it'll be your first one back.
I wanted to go Monday, but probably weather-wise, should probably go Sunday.
Yeah, so. That'll be good. So she's a Cardinal fan.
I am. And
now, is the husband a Cubs fan or?
No.
Okay, just checking.
No, those are fighting words.
All right, guys. Again, Jaime Travers, a newest member of our Fox 2 and News 11 weather team.
Thanks everyone for being so great.
Yeah, she's going to be with us weekend mornings and then during the weekdays as well. And you'll see her all over the place, and as we all are kind of nowadays. And she's great, and we're going to keep you up to date. And welcome.
Thank you.
All right, thanks all. We'll see you next time.